Big news coming in from Nepal right now, viewers. And that's a bit of news that India today had first given out. According to sources, Sushila Karki is all set now to take oath at the presidential palace tonight at 8:45 p.m. After the ceremony, she is expected to leave the premises immediately. Reports suggest that the decision comes in line with Gen Z protesters, which are said to have been accepted. Viewers, we began the bulletin that there are 3 demands that have been kept by Sushila Karki, and one of the sticking point in that was the dissolution of the parliament, which most political parties had said that they did not want. It seems all the 3 demands have been accepted, and the front runner to it was Sushila Karki. And Sushila Karki at 8:45 p.m. ending the uncertainty, the political uncertainty which is reigning on the streets of Bihar. Word coming in at 8:45 p.m. this evening, Sushila Karki will be taking oath as the interim Prime Minister of Nepal. Nepal's House of Representatives will be dissolved. This was a big sticking point. President Ramchandra Podel, who had been adamant about dissolving the House of Representatives only after Karki was handed over the leadership of the government, has now backed down. Sushila Karki, was the first woman Chief Justice of Nepal. She took oath in 2016, if I'm not wrong, and now she will be the first woman Prime Minister interim at that, where Nepal is concerned. My colleague Amit Bhardwaj is joining us for more. Amit, all decks have been cleared, ending political uncertainty right now. There was an uneasy calm that continued to prevail in Nepal. 8:45 p.m. Sushila Karki will take oath. Understandably, the 3 demands that she'd put forth have been accepted. The sticking point in that was the first demand, which was the dissolution of the parliament. What's more that you can add?
Preeti, we have also been confirmed by one of the top Gen Z leaders who were part of the deliberations and discussions for formation of this interim government that Sushila Karki is going to be the head of the interim government. At this point in time, we do not know for sure as to whether she'll be called the Prime Minister. I believe there could be a change in the terminology for her as well. She, in most likelihood, will be referred as the head of the interim government because there are constitutional provisions which were becoming roadblock for making her the Prime Minister of the interim government of Nepal. But I believe what we are given an indication that there could be a change in the terminology for her. The interim government is coming in place from 8:45 today in Nepal. So this is a historic moment, one of the defining moments ever since democracy was brought in Nepal, and that revolution happened on 9th of September. This could be a defining moment from Nepal from here on. 8:45, Sushila Karki alone will be taking the oath as the head of the interim government at Sheetal Niwas, which is the presidential complex in Kathmandu, which had also witnessed the fury of the Gen Zs, by the way, on September 9th. Now, whether there will be other ministers in her cabinet, how is she going to run the government? The clarity on that is going to come out only in 24 hours to 48 hours. What we are given to understand that she might be given a bunch of members, teammates who would have expertise, domain expertise as far as the finance department, education, health, foreign affairs departments are concerned. And the prerequisite for this interim government to come in and dissolving the parliament was also because the Gen Z and youth leaders such as Balen Shah have made it pretty clear that the roadmap for the fresh elections in Nepal has to be, chalked out at this point in time. So unless you have the parliament getting dissolved, how do you conduct a fresh elections within the span of 6 months? And that is why this demand was put forward by the Gen Z groups as well as the leaders such as Balen Shah that this particular parliament needs to be dissolved. More so because the September 9th revolution of the Gen Zs was to ensure that the political elite of Nepal is ousted from the power circles, and that is what has been for that, there was a prerequisite that this particular parliament needs to be dissolved. Otherwise, even if you have an interim government and Sushila Karki as the Prime Minister, head of that interim government, the same lawmakers will be inside the parliament against whom the entire revolution had happened on September 9th and whom the Gen Zs consider the corrupt political class of Nepal. So that is why they were adamant on this particular demand that the parliament has to be dissolved. That would ensure two things. Number one, the entire political elite of Nepal is ousted from the power circle. Number two, that opens the door for the fresh elections to be conducted in Nepal within 6 months. So the doorway for that has been opened. What I am given to understand, Sushila Karki is going to take oath at 8:45 inside the Sheetal Nivas, where she was holding parleys and discussions, deliberations until 3:30 a.m. today. And she was called back right in the morning. When I went to her home in the morning, I was told that army came in and requested her to come along so that this chapter can be formalized, the framework can be cleared so that the interim government can come into place. And the bigger question, what about the cabinet? Let's wait for next 24 hours to 48 hours. I believe there could be an domain experts who might come in, kick into the place to help to run the government for next 6 months. Preeti.
All right, so that's the big news that we are breaking, something that we had broken earlier on in the day as well, and now confirmation coming in. Sushila Karki will be taking oath at 8:45 p.m. this evening. Because Sushila Karki, a fearless figure where Nepal judiciary is concerned. She was the first woman Chief Justice of Nepal. She'd taken oath in 2016. She had a one-year term and had made some very, very decisive judgments there. One of them, which will go down into the hallmarks of Nepal's history, would be to give citizenship rights to the children of Nepalese mothers. So, that was just one of the revolutionary verdicts that Sushila Karki had given. So what we've been given to understand right now, those three demands that had been kept by none other than Sushila Karki, one of those demands, which was a sticking point, especially with the other political parties, was the dissolution of parliament. And it does seem that point has been accepted, clearing the decks for at least immediate political stability. Will Sushila Karki take the appointment of an interim prime minister? As my colleague Amit pointed out, that might not be the case. There might be a different title that she might be given till the time elections are held where Nepal is concerned. But one thing is for sure, that 8:45 this evening, Sushila Karki takes oath as the head of the interim leadership of Nepal. India, of course, would be watching this very closely. Sushila Karki has a distinct India connect. She studied in Banaras, where Banaras Hindu University comes into question. She also, at least her husband, by the nature of her husband, has a checkered past where India is concerned, was involved, viewers, at one point of time in a plane hijack, which is her husband, in a plane hijack which had Bollywood actor Mala Sinha on board. But all of that aside, Sushila Karki has also made, given out a statement that she respects and admires Prime Minister Modi. So vis-a-vis India, India has been closely watching the developments in Nepal. Somewhere down the line, that is also heartening to note that, at least that statement coming in from the next interim head of Nepal. I want to cut across right now to Pankaj Das from Kathmandu. We have multiple reporters tracking the developments in Nepal till now. Of course, after the 48-hour carnage in Nepal, the revolution has made sure that the government has fallen, and now the new government is going to be taking shape, which could be an interim government till fresh parliamentary elections are held. Pankaj, what are you picking up? जो एक डिमांड थी पंकज सुशीला कार्की की कि जो पूरा पार्लियामेंट है वो डिसॉल्व हो उनके ओथ लेने से पहले, क्या ये मांग मान ली गई है?
जी बिल्कुल, ये मांग मान ली गई है पार्लियामेंट डिसॉल्व का। उसके बाद ही सुशीला कोइराला ओथ लेने के लिए तैयार हुई हैं और इस समय बहुत ही जल्द राष्ट्रपति की तरफ से वो पार्लियामेंट डिसॉल्व का नोटिफिकेशन भी जारी हो जाएगा। इसी समय यहाँ पर शपथ ग्रहण की तैयारी हो रही है, उसमें जो है सारे जो वीवीआईपी इस समय सारे सिक्योरिटी फोर्सेस के चीफ है उनको बुलाया गया है, स्पीकर को बुलाया गया है, फिर जो नेशनल असेंबली है उसके चेयरमैन को बुलाया गया है, जो इस समय सिटिंग चीफ जस्टिस है उनको भी आने के लिए कहा गया। तो इन सबके वहां शीतल निवास राष्ट्रपति भवन पहुंचने में थोड़ा समय लगने के कारण जो है शपथ ग्रहण के समय को 15 मिनट के लिए आगे बढ़ाया गया है। जो 8:45 का टाइम पहले दिया गया था वो 9 बजे शपथ ग्रहण उनका हो रहा है। बहुत ही सीमित लोगों के साथ वहां पे सुशीला कार्की का शपथ ग्रहण होगा। उसके तुरंत बाद वो जाके जो सिंह दरबार में आज उनके लिए ऑफिस तैयार किया गया वहां पर वो कार्यभार संभालेगी। इसी बीच में वहां पे कुछ मंत्रियों के नाम को लेकर भी कौन लोग मंत्री होंगे इसको लेकर भी चर्चा चल रही है इस समय।
तो कौन लोग मंत्री होंगे, जो इंटरिम कैबिनेट होगा? सबसे पहले पंकज, क्या सुशीला कार्की जब ओथ लेंगी प्राइम मिनिस्टर के तौर पर ओथ लेंगी या हेड ऑफ नेपाल इंटरिम गवर्नमेंट के नाम पर ओथ लेंगी? जिस कैबिनेट की आप बात कर रहे हैं, क्या उसके सदस्य आज ओथ लेंगे? क्या उसके सदस्य, क्योंकि बहुत सारे जो ग्रुप्स हैं वो इस रेवोल्यूशन में जुटे थे, जो नेपाल की रेवोल्यूशन में जुटे थे, क्या उनमें से जो जेन जी कहला रहा है, अभी जेन जी रेवोल्यूशन कहला रही है, उनमें से कोई इस मंत्रिमंडल का पार्ट होंगे?
ये जो हमारे सूत्र बता रहे हैं वहां पे उनको जो है इस समय इंटरिम गवर्नमेंट का जो है चेयरपर्सन कहा जाएगा, क्योंकि नेपाल में ये प्रैक्टिस एक बार पहले भी हो चुका है। तो वही शब्द जो है प्रेसिडेंट के जो अभी नोटिफिकेशन निकलेगा उसमें वो वही शब्द होने वाला है। और दूसरी बात जो मंत्रियों की बात है उनमें से एक कुलमान घिसिंग जिनका नाम चल रहा था चेयरमैन के लिए भी, जो इंटरिम गवर्नमेंट को हेड करने के लिए, उनके नाम पर लगभग सहमति बन गई है। जो हमारे सूत्र बता रहे हैं कुलमान घिसिंग को कोई महत्वपूर्ण मंत्रालय दिया जा सकता है। इसी तरह जो ओम प्रकाश अरियाल इस समय सुशीला कार्की के साथ वहीं प्रेसिडेंट हाउस में मौजूद हैं, उनको भी, वो एक बहुत फेमस लॉयर हैं यहाँ पर नेपाल में, उनको भी अपने कैबिनेट में सुशीला कार्की जरूर लेंगी, ऐसा वहाँ के जो हमारे सोर्सेज हैं उनका कहना है। दूसरा जनजी के तरफ से जो हामी नेपाली ग्रुप है उनके जो अभी प्रेसिडेंट हैं सुदन गुरुङ जो इस सबको लीड कर रहे थे, उनके नाम की काफी चर्चा है। हालांकि उन्होंने पब्लिकली ये कहा हुआ है कि मैं कोई पोस्ट नहीं लूंगा। जब जिस दिन ये प्रोटेस्ट 8 सितंबर को हो रहा था उस दिन उन्होंने पब्लिकली ये कहा था, और ये सोशल मीडिया पर बहुत वीडियो है उनका, कि वो मैं कोई पोस्ट नहीं लूंगा, लेकिन उनके नाम की चर्चा काफी है।
All right, viewers, I also want to give you an understanding. Sushila Karki comes in from Biratnagar, which is relatively the plains of Nepal. There has always been a tug and push between the hills and the plains, where political clout mostly being concentrated in the hills. This is also a departure of that if Sushila Karki takes oath as the interim prime minister or the interim head of government. Once again, to give our viewers the latest that is coming in, Gen Z's choice, Sushila Karki will be the head of Nepal, be it in the form of a prime minister or head of the interim government till fresh parliamentary elections are called under her watch. Because there is going to be a cabinet that would be taking oath as well. What would be the selection of the cabinet? But one thing is for sure, the sheer reason that this is happening with the kind of immediacy and urgency is to immediately stem the political instability that has gripped the neighboring country of Nepal over the last 4 or 5 days. Even though after 48 hours of abject anarchy and carnage on the streets of Nepal, there was an uneasy calm. The army had taken stock of the situation. Mind you, 51 people have been killed in this revolution, and unfortunately there have been Indian nationals in that count of 51 as well. I want to cut across right now to Darshan Parjuli from Kathmandu. He's a journalist. Darshan, thank you for joining us. Darshan, how do you view the latest developments that are happening, and as quickly as that they are happening? One thing which was a sticking demand, and that was there was no consensus being reached, was Sushila Karki asking for the dissolution of parliament. That demand duly been accepted. What can we expect now?
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, this is a very historical moment for Nepal, because Nepal has, appointed the first lady prime minister like looking at past 3 days that's going on in Nepal. Now finally the protesters who were against corruption were demanding the resolvement of the parliament, and finally the army chief and president of Nepal has decided to appoint Sushila Karki as a voice of this movement. And looking at the history of her background on the corruption stand that she have taken in the past. And I think it's a historical movement that the process which it happened with a whole youth united could bring the whole system down. And now sees the voice of Genji, sees the youth, and here the protesters and other stakeholders in this are really excited to welcome her as a prime minister and as their representative, who would bring a lot of changes that these young aspirants, these young people in Nepal are looking forward. And definitely she would also bring some names, I mean some uh, like team members within her team, so that she could lead forward at 9 p.m. today. The whole ceremony is planned for, and as we talk things are more unfolding.
All right, so this would be the turning point in history where Nepal is concerned. But Darshan, all right, we're getting more news break coming in. Just stay with us, Darshan. Latest news break also coming in. Kulman Jising is being considered for a ministerial post. He was one of the contenders for taking over as the head of the interim government. And he might now be one of the ministers as well. Lots of information coming in. Darshan, I want to bring you back in because in Nepal, this is clearly a huge shift and change. There's always been a pull and push where it comes down to the hills and the plains. Sushila Karki comes in from Biratnagar, which is the plains, along with being what she will be, the first prime minister, if that title is given to her, of Nepal, who's a woman. She was also the first woman chief minister, a woman chief justice of Nepal. And her coming in from the plains will also be a first for Nepal, Darshan, isn't it?
That's correct, exactly. So she was the first lady chief justice, who led the judiciary. And also we should not forget, why this whole generation were in favor of Sushila Karki, because in the past she have done some wonderful, work for the, demands that youths now are creating. Like, for example, she have, like work against some of the corruption cases, like Sudan Ghotala Kanda, which is the big corruption case, was in Nepal. And of course, there are so many other names that coming up. And for this, landing, because it took, if we look at the timeline, it took, few hours, to decide, I mean, to bring this news. It was a lot of uncertainty during that time, that, every one of us were going through, and finally it's happening. I think she would definitely represent, young Gen Z and these, aspirations of whole corruption and the, system that these few, political parties have, like.
Right. All right. So, Sushila Karki's viewers, just to give our viewers perspective, was the #1 choice for, if for the lack of a better, name, the Gen Z group. Of course, they were protesting under the banner of Gen Z, but it wasn't just a Gen Z protest. This was a revolution now, unfortunately, written by the blood of 51 people. But this is also a pivotal, marquee moment for Nepal. Will go down in the annals of Nepal's political history, of a huge shift that has taken place. One we saw in 2008, and then, of course, now that we see now. Sushila Karki, with her judicial legacy, has put her bang in the middle of the political upheaval that we saw over the course of the next 3 days, and given her the writ to write the new chapter for the country of Nepal. She will take oath at 8:45 or 9 p.m. Tonight. She was the first Chief Justice, woman's Chief Justice of Nepal, and she will be sworn in this evening as the first woman Prime Minister of Nepal. She will be the one, along with her cabinet, a number of people across the spectrum who took part in this revolution in Nepal will be in her cabinet. What we are going to see and witness till the time parliamentary elections take place under this interim government will be a completely different shift to what Nepal has been used to, something that was put forth and penned by the youth of Nepal. Sushila Karki, the first woman Prime Minister of Nepal to take oath at 9 p.m. this evening.